Hello and welcome to Father Wounds video number 3. My name is Justin Kennard, and at the time of this recording, I'm a registered intern mental health counselor, and I'm at Phoenix Counseling with my wife. And so this is video 3. The title of this video is Specific Wounds. I know it's nothing fancy, but it is what it is. I do suggest, though, in all seriousness, that you go back and watch video 1 and 2 before watching video 3 today. I've set this series up in a way to where video 1 flows into 2, 1 and 2 flow into 3. Now, do I believe that you can watch today's video and hopefully, get some insights or some thoughts going? Yeah, obviously I would hope so. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice, and I think you're cheating yourself out of some potential depth and understanding. If you'll just take the time to watch video 1 and 2, this is not about me trying to pump up my views and whatever. If this thing goes viral, great. If it doesn't, whatever. The point of this whole series, to be frank, is to help people slow down enough, particularly dudes, to help us slow down enough to start realizing what's going on and what are some of the things that have happened to us that are driving our behaviors today that we're struggling with, that we don't always get to talk about. All right. So I don't have no expectation of me making a 20 or 30 minute video and being like, poof, you're healed. All right. I find that incredibly narcissistic in thinking, and I do not think in 30 minutes we're going to heal potentially 30 years of wounding. All right. So let's have just honest expectations. Some quick housekeeping, if you will. And I said this in the other videos, hopefully. I am coming from a Christian worldview. I don't apologize for it, but I also want to say you don't have to align with that worldview in order to understand the point of this video and series. Now, there's going to be certain points I think you're going to have to figure out ways for it to shift into your paradigm and how you view the world. And that's cool. That's probably just an extra step you're going to have to take. But it's certainly not a point. I ain't coming at you with hellfire and brimstone and heaping coals on your head. Okay, I didn't grow up in a church, so even the way I interpret things can be kind of interesting from time to time. So just know that, all right? The second thing is this video series has a slant towards the father-son dynamic. I say that because, quite frankly, most of our viewers here at Phoenix are female, our followers. Are females. Ladies, please help me out. Please pass this video along to your husband, your boyfriend, your father, your brother, an uncle, a buddy at work, whatever. And also, I would really appreciate that in regards to just getting this message out to more males and women. I feel like you're way better at doing this than us guys, if I'm honest. And ladies, I do want to say that there are some carryover and similarities for sure with the father-daughter relationship that are going to be similar to the whole father-son wounding and dynamic. I just want to be honest in saying this video is going to have a slant towards the father-son side of the fence. I think that does it for housekeeping. So let's roll. And I do have my notes down here, so if you see me looking down, I'm still old school and handwriting all this stuff out, Maybe one day I'll get with the times, but not today. So, today is about specific wounds. And I understand many people are like, hey, man, tell me what's wrong so I can fix it. Tell me the process. What's going on? All right, so this is wrong. This is how you fix it. I want to move on. Well, I'm not trying to be a fun sponge. But the process of change and deep transformation doesn't work like that. I know a lot of times that gets sold, especially in the self-help section or certain motivational speakers. And they're like, if you just do this one thing, then you're going to blah, blah, blah. I kind of believe if you don't address the root that caused that behavior or thing to show up in the first place, yeah, you can address this behavior through that one thing you got to change, that I just believe is going to show up in another way because the root still hasn't been handled. And so whatever's driving you to do this certain behavior, it's just going to shift the way it comes. So I do want that known or put out there. I think we live in a microwave society that has trained us that we can have most whatever we want now. I mean, think about it, especially since the pandemic. I mean, we could have all kind of food delivered to the house. We have our groceries delivered, restaurant stuff delivered. We could buy a car now, like what is it, Carvana? Like you could buy a car online, and they show up with like a tow truck thing, and drop it off at your driveway. Everything obviously food. We have a lot of microwavable food. 2 minute rice. And 2-minute meals and meal prepping services that drop all your meals off. Which listen, me and my wife have done almost all this except for the whole car buying thing. So this is no finger pointing and shame. I'm just saying like our society and culture has shaped some of this. This is a problem. Here's the immediate fix. Boom, boom, boom. But change doesn't work like that. True deep transformation change does not work like that. And that's a hard pill, I think, for a lot of us to swallow, because that makes the journey, quite honestly, a lot harder. Again, going back to that Christian worldview part. Jesus' ministry was essentially 3 years. And for a lot of that time, he's hanging with his disciples, doing all kind of intense miracles and all these things, turning, water to wine, raising people from the dead, casting out demons, feeding people with 3 fish and some bread. He's feeding 5,000 people with leftovers. And even with all this and teaching and hanging out and the day-to-day, he still had pretty much all his disciples going, I don't know, you sure this guy is the one, are you sure? Oh yeah, he is. Then 2 days later, I don't know. He's doing that weird thing again. And even Thomas, after Jesus dies, we just had Easter, or Resurrection Day. Jesus dies, comes back, and he's like, I'm not going to believe it till I'm able to put my own finger into his wound in his hand, his wrist. And so it's like, man, if these dudes hung out with Jesus on the daily for 3 years, seeing all the just cool and crazy things he did, and they still had questions, man, I don't expect my 20 to 30 minute video to be like, oh man, you're going to change and this is all going to happen right now. No. I hope it sets you out on a journey. And a journey that you take the rest of your life to keep changing and growing as a man. And I think that's important to realize, that it's okay to be on a journey till you take your dirt nap. And it's good. Keep growing, keep changing, keep challenging yourself. It's good. Going back to Jesus, holy smokes, one of his own disciples turned on him, and had him killed. This is a dude who hung out with him again on the regular. And so it's just this reality of these short-term fixes really bite us in the butt. It's a long-term journey. I will tell you that the journey is hard. It requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of time. But the short-term pain is well worth, trust me, is well worth the long-term benefit that occurs in your life. I'm living proof of this, okay? I've been on my journey of change for 7, 8 years, something like that. Well, depending how you want to look at it, could be 12. But anyway, it's been a while, and I'm not sitting here going, oh man, I made it. No, I'm honestly proud and happy of the changes I've made, man. I've come a long way, and I can celebrate that. But I'm also like, all right, cool. Well, let's keep going. I've changed this far. What else is there? Let's keep doing it. I don't want to be held back anymore. I want freedom, man. I want to be able to go live this life and enjoy it as best I can this side of, earth living and all that. So, yeah, I just want to put that out there. And also, man, I really hope that if any of this kind of gets the gears flowing in your mind, man, it's okay to ask for help. I really hope and pray at this point through the pandemic and in 2022, that we can really crush the stigma that goes on with mental health, especially for us dudes. That it's okay to ask for help. Quite honestly, I feel it's more courageous to step into the office or virtual, telehealth, whatever, and ask and get help and ask for the help in therapy. I think that's one of the most courageous acts us dudes will take, straight up. And that's not because I'm a counselor. It's because I've been through the journey myself. All right, I'm still on the journey. Okay, I've been in therapy a long time, and I've been through a lot of stuff. I think it's one of the most courageous things we can do. So, let's get on to the meat and potatoes of the video, specific wounds. So this first part, I want to talk about identity and worth. Now, again, I've been kind of, as if you've been watching these videos, I've been giving you, some scripture points to tie into where, these thoughts and things came from on my end. In identity, Matthew 4 talks about, the devil tempting Jesus. Now, a lot of it was, the devil doing, do this, turn this into bread. You're so hungry. But really what he's challenging is Jesus's identity from his Father. You remember that from the previous video, so I'm not going to go into it. But that was his whole point, was to challenge him of his identity. Just like he challenged Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, Satan did. It's the same thing of like, are you really your father's son? Are you really? Now, worth. This goes back to Matthew chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, where Jesus gets baptized and, clouds part. I always thought this would be a cool thing to see. And his dad speaks and he goes, "This is my son whom I love and whom I am well pleased." Well, man, I think that's pretty neat. And now you know how your father feels about you, and he said it to your friends. John was there and obviously some others. I think that's pretty neat. And so Jesus doesn't really question or wander around going, I don't know what my identity and worth is. But if we're honest, I think a lot of us do. All right. And so let's get into it. Your identity. Do you find yourself acting like what I call a chameleon? Now, a chameleon can change its colors from, orange, green, brown, blue, all kind of colors. And what I mean is when you're chilling with a certain set of friends or coworkers or whatever, you act a certain way. Then when you're with family, you're shifting colors, it's the chameleon part, and you turn green and you act this way. But then when you're out with your buddies and you're doing whatever, now you're orange. And, so you have all this shifting that's going on. And maybe you're the life of the party, when you're hanging out with people, you're kind of loud and rambunctious and funny and all that. But eventually the party's got to end and you got to make your way back to your bed. And it's 1, 2, 2:30 in the morning and you're staring out the window. It's dark. There's no one really left to talk to. There's no one texting you or no distractions. And you really come gripped face to face with this giant hole in the middle of your chest, which I feel is loneliness. Because you're not fitting in, because part of that, and we'll get into another chunk of it here in a little bit, is the fact that you don't really know who you are. Your dad didn't build into you this thing of like, hey, son, this is who you are. I love you for that. I love that you're amazing at painting and drawing and you can throw the baseball 90 miles an hour and I'm awesome, good job on the B+ on the math, let's go get an ice cream. Now worth is another tough one. Can you find yourself in these moments where I guess the easy one is where you find yourself literally saying, I'm not worth it, or when someone asks you, what you do and who you are, you just kind of blink twice and tell them what you do for a job. Another way to check your worth, and I use money just because it's a tangible, tactile thing that's sometimes easier for our brain to latch onto. Are you willing to like give your friend $100 if they need it, but you won't spend like $30 on yourself to get something you want at a restaurant, or maybe, I don't know, get yourself some kind of gift or a new tool or something. You're like, oh no, I can't do that. Why? Why is it that you're so quick? And I'm not saying it's wrong to give people, help a friend out or whatever. I think that's awesome. Okay, so I'm not down on that. But why is it okay to give, your buddy $100? But when it comes to spending money on you, again, I'm just using money as an easy example here. Why is it that like you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe if that was on sale and for $19.99, I might swing it. Why is that? Because that's a sign of your self-worth. That you can ask, other people can ask you for help, but you're not worth being asked. So think about those spots, your identity. Do you find yourself shifting? Your worth. Do you, if you're honest, do you feel like you're not worthy of love or good things, or again, good things happening to you? The next part is capability. Now, I got this from John Eldridge, who's the author of Wild at Heart. He has a great podcast as well. And his capability, and your dad is supposed to build into you your like belief that you are capable of doing. And it's early on, dad works with you. Let's pretend it's your bicycle, and your bicycle's got a flat tire, the chain fell off or something like this. And he's helping you. He's got the tool, he's working with you, he's teaching you how it works. Well, maybe down the road, after you've done this a few times, your dad says, here's the tools. I'm going to go inside and I gotta go fix the leaky toilet. You got this. And you might freak out a little bit, like, oh, crap, I've always done this with dad. But he's taught you enough and believed in you enough that you're like, you know what? I can do this. I remember how to fix it flat, and the chain, or maybe put a new chain on, whatever. I can do this. Your dad is supposed to build into you, and then as you get older and you grow into that, he just helps provide some of the raw materials so you can develop some of that yourself. So when you're an adult living in your house and something breaks, you're like, oh, I can go to Home Depot. I can do this. I might have to watch YouTube for 4 hours, but I can do it. Cool. Well, again, going back to some scripture and idea, capability. Jesus, you never hear him in all his miracles and works. Like, you never hear him being like, man, I hope this water does turn to wine because this is going to be a little bit weird. Or, I know Lazarus has been dead for a few days, and I'm pretty sure this will work if I pray. Right? We don't hear that. He's like, boom, prayed, water turned to wine. Boom, praise, cries with Lazarus, boom, Lazarus is up. Still wrapped in all his, gauze and everything else. Jesus knew he was capable. He knew what he was able to do. It wasn't like he sat there going, man, we got 5,000 people, and we got like 3 fish and some bread. Are you kidding me? Like, man, I'm going to pray, but you guys might want to get your fishing rods out. No, right? That would be ridiculous. And again, these, some of Justin's interpretations here. But, right, he knew he was capable. He's like, all right, just give me the stuff. I'll take care of it. Boom, 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 boom. His father built into him that he is capable. And when you don't feel capable of doing things, do you bow out? Do you find yourself when the quote-unquote going gets tough, you just start avoiding, or you shut it down, or maybe you get angry and you react? I'll give you an example from my life. This was 4 or 5 years ago. Andrea, my wife, was helping me set up my academic coaching business. And man, I had this huge struggle with doing anything that was like a lot of paperwork that had a lot of detail. I just really struggled with it. Had to do with this whole capability thing. So Andrea had printed out all this material from this thing she had done and the SBA, Small Business Association. She basically was like, hey, if you work through this, this will lead you to really building out your business and structuring it, and then we'll set it up, register it and all that. So I had a lot of struggles with this. She literally set this up. and I'm at the kitchen table, and she was in the kitchen, cooking something, and I snapped. Not really at her. I just grabbed the paper and I went and I threw it all across the living room. I didn't feel capable. Like, as the pages kept going, and I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, and I didn't know how to answer something. I just lost it. And I just threw it all, and kind of frankly had a temper tantrum. All right, so that's an honest, real life example from my life where I don't feel capable, or I didn't at the time, to sit down and do that kind of work. Do you find yourself struggling with that whole mindset? Like, maybe your wife or somebody asks you to do something, and you're like, your first thought is, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, can you learn? Are you willing to try? So there's that. This one's another heavy hitter. Belonging. Yeah, drink of water here. In the book of John, chapter 8, verse 35, talks about the father adopting the son into his family. Taking the son into the family. Now, the dad, I believe, is the one who makes you a part of the family system. Now, this is no diss and or disrespect to moms, all right? It's just, I think, how we're wired as humans. It's the dad who brings you into the family. Now, I know that can sometimes get strung really far with the male being the head, and this, he's got, that's how it is. No, that's a whole nother talk. That's a great couples therapy type video, but that is not where I'm heading either. But it is part of the dad's presence, is he brings you into the family. Now, in video number 2, you might remember I talked about how the child interprets some of the father's behaviors. Now, I'm not going to get into it, and I'm doing it on purpose so that you have to go back and watch it. But that is relevant to this point. Because the child doesn't have the ability to really understand why his dad is doing what he does. So he makes all kinds of rationale in his mind of why that is. So go back and watch video 2, because I break that down and talk about it. I got asked, this idea of belonging. I think this is one of the deepest, darkest wounds that we have as human beings. I think this leads into that whole loneliness and despair piece. I think this can take you into a very dark, dark place, because when we don't feel like we belong, and maybe that we don't matter, right? Because we're not part of the family. We're like, man, I guess I don't matter. Like, why does my brother get this, but dad won't hang out with me? He talks to, him about fishing, but he doesn't come and ask me about my hobby, whatever that is. I guess I don't matter. I just don't belong. And maybe we start acting that out. Or we start separating ourselves from the family. Maybe the family's watching TV in the living room, and you just find yourself in your bedroom, doing your own thing. I believe this sends us into what I call the orphan pit. We start taking on this orphan mentality, where, we're with our biological family and all that. So we're not, technically an orphan, but it's acted out in a way where, those people are physically present. But if you don't belong and you're not really a part of the family, guess what that makes you? An orphan. And that makes where you live an orphanage. You're getting the bare bones. You're getting the meals, you're getting the shower, you're getting the clothes. What else? School or whatever. You're not getting the emotional stuff, which is paramount to development from baby child to teen and beyond, right? You need that stuff. And I got to be honest, I don't know about you, but a lot of my suicidal days I had when I was younger was driven from this drain, this mentality that I don't belong and I don't matter. And that's a very dark place to be. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. We don't talk about it enough. And make sure, All right. So the last one, this plays into the worth type thing. And this one is, in my opinion, the most obvious and one that's usually an easy one to pick up in session with somebody is when the male, and again, it can be male and female, but the male is seeking approval and validation, whether that's from his wife, his job, his athletic accomplishments, whatever. It's this constant chase for approval and validation. There's so many times when Jesus is like, hey man, I'm not here for earth and humanity's approval. He already received his Father's approval. This is why you're here. This is what you're going to do. And, oh, cool. He wasn't out here looking for our approval and validation. He was doing what he was called to do. And I think when we have not had our Father in our life, and guys, listen up, because we need this, and this has to be a moment that has happened in your life. All right? There has to be this moment where your dad tells you he's proud of you. He looks you in your eyes. He says, I'm proud of you. And there also has to come this moment, when you get a little older, where your dad basically has his arm around you, or he looks at you face to face, and he says, you're a man now. That has to happen. And my mentor taught me about this. That has to happen. Otherwise, we walk around trying to fill this big void in our middle of our chest of not feeling validated or approved. So what do? A lot of times, dudes, here's where we flow. We become workaholics. Okay? Because I get all my worth and value from my job, and I'm moving up the ladder, or I'm making X amount of bucks. But it still never really feels this, does it? You might feel good on a Friday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, maybe a week or two. But eventually this comes back knocking. Maybe it's our physique. We get really caught up in the gym, moving iron and doing that. And we're like, yeah, I'm looking jacked and this, that, and the other. Again, depending on age and what you're doing, maybe it's your athletic accomplishments, whether it's like college football, pro ball, hockey, basketball, baseball, whatever. And sports becomes your place where you dominate and you get your approval and validation. Well, guess what? Eventually, you're going to get old enough or have enough surgeries like I did where that's not really a thing. And you're not going to get the awards, the trophies, and the whatevers anymore. And now what? Again, this is tough because it's like, ask me how I know this. Okay? I saw validation, and it was like, there'd be times even in my marriage, particularly earlier on, where it was like, man, I just wanted my wife's validation. It's like, well, why do you need that? Is it cool to hear? Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm not trying to pretend like, oh, I don't need anybody's validation ever. Yeah, it feels good. We're still human beings, right? But I don't need that to function in my day-to-day. But if I have a father wound where I was never validated and approved, and I was just criticized over and over and over, well, then I'm going to find other places where I feel like I'm valued. But they don't last, ever. Now, you can heal this wound, and all these wounds I've listed, so this isn't some permanent, oh no. You can heal these wounds, all right? So, I don't want to make this video any longer than it is already. We're already hitting on 29 minutes. So, hopefully today shed some light on, these struggles and these wounds. And I really hope and pray you take the time to stop and think, are any of these relevant to me? Some, all, one, whatever. And I ask this again, this isn't some call, oh, come see Justin for therapy. He's the one. No, man, you don't have to come see me. If you're like, I don't like you and your bald head, that's fine. That's just what it is. But go get some help. Go get your healing. Trust me. Your future family, your current family, your wife, kids, friends, people, man, your life's going to be a lot better if you do this. Again, there's gonna be some short-term pain you're gonna have to work through. Okay, but trust me when I tell you, like I said at the beginning of the video, the long-term benefits huge, way outweigh the short-term pain. Now, short-term could be a year or two. We tend to think of that as, a couple of weeks. No. If you're like 30 years old and you're going to live to 100, you got 70 years. So if you deal with a few years of stuff, that's short-term. You got to start thinking in this mentality too, timeline-wise. But before I get myself caught up in another video and we go way longer, thank you again for joining me today. I know this material is heavy. I know that sometimes it leaves you hanging, but it's on purpose to cause you to think. It's not because I'm trying to play mind games and mess with you. But I really just want you to think. My goal is to really help men heal. And I think that once we work on ourselves, can help our families, which then helps our communities. But it starts with us as an individual first. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, that sums it up for video number 3. Take care. See you. And you are capable.